Hi, I enjoy talking about more speculative ideas around AI, but there's a long history of inaccurate predictions around technology across many metrics. And I thought, well, what better use than to use AI to explore that a bit and to see if we could explore a more moderate set of opinions or ideas. So I came up with this prompt, and I thought today we'd use DeepSeek just for a change, really. We will potentially go to Google Gemini at a later point. So here I am in DeepSeek, and I've clicked DeepThink and search. So internet search, I hope, will go out and get things from the internet. And DeepThink, I hope, will increase the reasoning capacity for the model. So I'm just going to paste in what I've done already. So here we are. You're a graduate with the task of reading government reports, white papers, academic journals, and news articles, and creating expert analysis and reports summarizing the information to be collated into a white paper for technology and humanist think tank. So I use the word humanist there because I didn't want it to be just a technology think tank. I wanted it to have some kind of bent towards a positive future for humanity. So then I go on to ask it to find examples where predictions are made about a new technology that were wildly inaccurate, with commentators getting it wrong in any of the following terms. And then I go down and I list them here. Catastrophic outcomes that don't happen, overblown claims about the technology solving problems, failing to foresee fundamental changes and benefits that a technology would have, or to foresee net positive outcomes on societal levels, and catastrophizing risk, but failing to see how inventive strategies for risk mitigation track new technological development. So obviously some of these questions come from a little bit of my own background knowledge, and two examples of the last point I can think of immediately are, for example, there is this kind of a follow-on curve, as it were, from people inventing ways to secure digital equipment, online cloud stuff, and the people who want to hack into them. So to give you an example of this, back in the 90s, no one had even heard of two-factor authentication. Now we use it as a matter of course, but we also use multiple different sort of versions or ideas around two-factor authentication, from the simplest of the web app having a back-end connection to a mobile phone system that sends you an SMS to confirm it's you. So bonding the mobile phone number to the person, because that's regarded as being slightly less hackable than other means, or two-factor authentication apps like Google Authenticator, or there's a Microsoft one, and there are better versions than both of those available. So this is as far as I've got with this prompt. I am not an expert prompt writer. I don't think this is particularly good, but it is a starting point. But here we are in a situation where we possibly for the first time have a tool that can teach us how to use it. So I'm going to add something at the beginning of this, and I'm going to say, hi, DeepSeek. You are an expert prompt. Okay, so I paused the video because I can't think and type at the same time, or it's certainly talk, think, and type. So here we go. Hi, DeepSeek. You are an expert prompt writer with a specialization in writing prompts for DeepSeek. Look at the following prompt and optimize it. Make suggestions of how it could be improved. When writing the prompt, use bold text for additions and changes. Here is the prompt to optimize. Okay, so there we go. There's my prompt. I didn't read the second section of it. You can have a look at it now if you want. Just pause the video. Okay, and I'm just going to click go and see what happens. I've not done this before, so I am on a journey of discovery with you. So this is great. I like that by default you can see the thinking. This is not always the case with AIs. Sometimes you have to pull the box down and the thinking goes on in the background. Okay, optimizing a prompt. Making sure it's clear and structured. Okay, so I can immediately see things that I've missed out here. For example, sources. Yes, of course. If I'm going to generate content for, let's say, this white paper, and of course this would be a section, perhaps a chapter, I'm going to need to know my sources, and I'm going to have to cross-check them. So, of course, and checking for inaccuracy. So this is great. It's already thinking better than my initial prompt. And so here's the optimized prompt. Role. Yep, that's fine. Core objectives. See, this is nice. I mean, it's saying exactly what I said, and it's using, you know, maybe flarier language, but it's more focused. The language is more focused. And then it's given examples. Where did I give them initially? Maybe I don't think I mentioned nuclear power, so it's sort of already it's already doing a little bit of the work here. Okay, so it's pulled off. I asked it to focus on these areas. It's pulled these areas out, but I also asked in my initial prompt for it to think of other stuff, and it hasn't done that. So if we just go back to the initial prompt. So societal shifts caused by massive increases in back-office automation, ultra-fast app development by non-coders. This is called vibe coding now, for anyone that's not heard of this. Advent of driverless cars as being only road insurable vehicles. Okay, so that's my idea about the development of the insurance industry and you know how that relates to the advent of driverless cars, which is that driverless cars will eventually become almost crash-proof, and then like, why would you insure a person? That the risk is too high. It's ridiculous. So in fact, my thesis there is that manually driving a car will be a thing that only very wealthy individuals get to do. Advances in biotech and medical. But you see, here's the thing, and anything else I have not thought of. Okay, so let's just pop down here. That is now missing out. But then perhaps it's been added in here in a way that is better. So maybe it's not missing. Include overlooked domains, and then it's given Starlink. I like that already. So quantify inaccuracies where possible. Okay, so this is looking like a really good prompt, but we identified a need to be able to trace our sources, and that is not in this prompt. So let's go back here, and we're just going to copy this. And you know what? There's clearly a structure here. We've got role, core objectives, focus areas, output requirements, added emphasis, why this works. So it's actually telling us why the prompt works. Structure. Okay, explicit linking, actionable output. Okay, so this is something called prompt engineering, and this is everybody's first step with using AI is to talk to it like you talk to a human. And then you begin to realize that the way you organize your thoughts have as much impact or more impact as the way that we interact as humans. So basically, if you ask dumb questions, you get dumb answers. So the next step on everybody's journey is to start to think about structure in the way that they prompt. And this just generally is called prompt engineering. And so in the context of what it's given us here, and we've sort of come to this question, what is prompt engineering? So I'm just going to ask DeepSeek, now I'm on here, how do I engineer a good prompt for AI? I'm just going to ask it that. How do I engineer a good prompt for an AI? And I suspect it's going to come out with something like the why it works structure, clarity, comparability. Let's see. Okay, so I've left deep think on and search, so it's probably doing much more work than I actually wanted it to. This is where using the right AI model sort of comes into play, because you don't want to be using more compute than you need to, because that'll take more time than you want to. So this is great. Okay, so define the role and objective. Structure the input. Wow, it's having a real think about that. Sorry, DeepSeek. Okay, I'm actually going to stop it there, because this isn't a tutorial on how to write a prompt. It's simply an exploration. And so what we've discovered here is that you can, in fact, ask the AI to teach you how to use it. All right, I'm going to select a new chat. I've already copied the prompt that it gave me. I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to edit it slightly. You don't need anything underneath why it works. Okay, let's just take the prompt as is. I'm going to create a reference set. You can read that. I'm going to press go, and here we go. So this is going to have a really, really good think now. And I think what I'm tempted to do, and this is the beauty of cloud compute, it's not being computed on my machine, but it's being computed out on the internet. That means I'm not going to overload my machine by going to something else. Let's choose Gemini 2.5 Pro. And I am going to ask it exactly the same thing so that we can compare and contrast the results. Okay, this is good. So DeepSeek has found 50 results. These are the online references that it's been looking for. So it's going to go through the provided search results to find relevant historical examples. I think here we can outline an issue that all AIs potentially have at the moment, and that is that they are trained. Well, we don't actually know the extent to which the balance of training data with regards to, in terms of online content, so the internet, and the amount of information that they've been trained on in terms of books. Now, personally, I think books, well, there may be a tendency for books to have more accurate information, but then again, it depends on the source of the book, doesn't it? So, but what I'm really trying to get to the bottom of here is that just because information is available does not mean that it's accurate. So here we go. Here are the references. Okay, we can go and check them later. Let's see what it's written. And it's called it Thematic Case Studies, Historical Tech Prediction Failures versus AI AGI Realities. Okay, it's picked out the internet will collapse by 1996. And it's done a contrast within the same paragraph. I love this. IBM's Thomas Watson stated that there was a world market for maybe 5 computers. So, yeah, okay. Overpopulation solutions, hype versus reality. Oh, sorry, optimist solutions. Blockchain as a corruption panacea. Underestimating the internet. Critics dismissed remote work's viability, yet broadband enabled today's 1.3 trillion gig economy. Yeah, GPS initially a military tool quietly revolutionized logistics and ride sharing. Okay, I like these examples. I like that it's contrasting them straight away. I'm not entirely sure it's particularly readable. I think it's quite short. I like that we've got the references. So let's go over and find out what Google's done. So Google. It's called it the hindsight engine. I think that is a piece of hyperbole, isn't it? Okay, this is, you see, this looks to me more like a white paper. This is much better. You know, I think the thing that DeepSeek threw out is not something I could publish or even edit and publish. It's not even. It's more like a kind of a starting point for thoughts. Okay, so I've got an executive summary here. You can read it with me. Okay, it's well written. It seems to be on point. I like this. By analysing patterns of overestimation, underestimation, risk fixation, that's nice, and societal blind spots, we can better anticipate the complexities of AI and AGI. This includes understanding its potential to, okay, this is where it's just pulled stuff off the prompt. Okay, it's added education and novel ethical quandaries. This historical lens allows us to move beyond binary hype or doom towards a balanced perspective that acknowledges both the profound challenges and the immense potential of AI or AGI, informed by the quiet successes and loud failures of the past. Now, I like that very much, and it brings, you know, one of the nice things about using AI is that as you're working with it, your own mind is working. So I immediately realized that, you know, I'm a trained solutions-focused practitioner, and I've always thought that a problem with sort of think tank output is not that it's sort of right or wrong, mostly it's speculative, but that it doesn't use a solutions-focused approach. So it simply dumps on you a whole bunch of potential issues without any, you know, it's a think tank. It's supposed to like come up with creative solutions, and I just feel a lot of the time, maybe it's just the stuff that gets in the news, but a lot of the time it doesn't. It just says, you know, it's got no kind of nuance around that. So Let's just continue. Okay, it's the Y2K Millennium bug. It's picked out. Okay, it's given us bullet points. Prediction that largely never materialized. I mean, I remember this. They thought planes were going to fall out of the sky. It was the hysteria around it was absolutely phenomenal. And I did, in fact, work for a company that had to completely. I don't know if it refactored its code, but it was actually it was a small medium enterprise, and they built hardware for heating systems, and it had been around since my guess is the early 80s, and I mean this is the only place I've ever worked that used one of these. It used an old IBM mainframe system. I mean we really are talking 1980s tech here, and this was in the 90s, and it was, I mean, some of their, I think a lot of their VDUs were actually still green screens, so it was absolutely ancient, and I don't remember what they did, but I do remember that the entire system was it wasn't worth fixing, I think. Anyway, let's move on. Yeah, blockchain utopianism. Yeah, sure. I mean, this is quite a big one. We want to get rid of corruption, but corruption's part of the human condition, isn't it? So for every solution that we're going to come up with, we're going to mess it up. Okay. Case study 3, the internet's early days, blind spots to societal. I'm not going to read it. We can do that later. Renewable energy, dismissing scalability and economic viability. So a complete failure to understand how rapid the technology is advancing and what impact that would have. Yeah. And this is across the board. This is a very common thing in my opinion. Oh, it's given me a nice table here, which I can export to Sheets. Very nice. Okay, this is great. We've got references here. This is a really good report. It's actually sufficiently good to require reading in depth. And we've got a nice long list of references. So I'm going to... Okay, so here is the same prompt that I started with before it was optimized. And before I asked it, I think before I asked it for references. So let's see what it comes out with now. Okay, so it's picked out the Y2K bug again. Concerns about railways. Let's read this. In the 19th century, so we're going back a bit here, I like that too, the advent of railways, prominent concerns included the belief that the human body was not designed to travel at speeds of 30 to 50 miles an hour. Die of asphyxia. I mean, this is incredible stuff. But okay, so I've not asked it for a reference, but that sounds entirely plausible. And it reminds me of a theory about the first atomic bomb. And there was a theory that it could ignite the atmosphere and cause an uncontrolled reaction that would burn away the oxygen in the entire planet. This was a real theory. And we're, of course, very lucky that it was not true. And in fact, it was perhaps an extreme theory. Okay, initial reactions to electricity. Fears were rampant. It was mysterious and invisible. Predicting it was cause fires or electrocute people indiscriminately. Okay, so again, that's interesting, isn't it? When you've got a power that you can't see. I remember degree of anxiety around microwaves, and I think that's the same thing going on there. Claiming tech would solve problems it couldn't, so flying car, nuclear-powered everything. Yeah, the 1950s, of course. Elimination of spam, that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, other things come to mind as well. Of course, we've had the... there's a famous quote out there somewhere, I can't remember it exactly, but it says that nuclear fusion is only 20 years around the corner. It's only been 20 years around the corner since about 1950 as well. Okay, I love this. We're back to the computer analogies here. There would be no reason anyone would want a computer in their home. I love these quotes. Okay, failing to foresee net positive outcomes at societal levels. The printing press. So the printing press democratized knowledge, fueled the Renaissance and the Reformation, laid the groundwork for modern education and scientific advancement. Somebody recently argued that, and I think it might have been the printing press, also triggered wars. So we've got a initial initial problems. Let's say a society goes through a stage of transition. Another thing I've heard about the printing press was that there was a relatively rapid, within the first 20 years of the invention, relatively rapid development of leafleting. Leaflets were printed and then passed around the country. This was the UK, I think. And the leaflets contained examples of the first misinformation and conspiracy theories. Okay, so we've got an example of the automobile here. You see, this is where doing research that spans different AIs or typing in prompts differently gives you kind of ideas. So, okay, we've got the automobile here, but somewhere else I saw that there was a response from an AI that was talking about horses and the great horse manure issue they predicted by. This was a prediction from the 1800s that predicted that there would be mountains and mountains of horse manure in London by the 1940s, and that people wouldn't be able to move around. So it completely missed the potential changes in technology. And let's face it, in the late 1800s, we were not used to changes in technology being very quick. You know, it's interesting. I've not optimized the prompt, but I really rather like the output here. Of the three things that I've done here, the middle one here, by Gemini 2.5 Pro, you know, this has given us something that actually looks like a white paper. So what else can I say? I find the output is relatively, it's got a skew, and this is because we're talking about technology, I guess. It's got a skew towards relatively modern day issues. And there are no examples from what I can see from anywhere other than the global north. Now, I'm not here suggesting that the AIs have bias, but I think that they're possibly responding to potential structural bias. For example, you know, industrialization happened in the global north first. So maybe it's just there are more examples there, or the examples are more prominent on the internet. So I'm just going to ask it a follow-up question. Okay, so I've asked for an example from Asia and China. Okay, so I've said the global south so that I can incorporate, say, potentially Africa and South America as continents. Examples from Asia and China. Asia generally, but I don't want to miss China out because they potentially have the deepest or at least the oldest wisdom tradition that I can think of. So it's a very ancient and important culture, so I'm going to add that. Okay, so I want to broaden the scope a little bit here. Because I've gone to deep history, which might have less concrete technological examples, I have introduced thought and philosophy and given as an example the advent of democracy. I don't know what this is going to give me. Can you add to this? Okay, so AIs usually are context sensitive. They do remember what they did before and what you asked them before, but I've made it really specific here because this is quite a broad request in its scope. So let's just see what it answers. So while it's doing that, I'm going to go back to the one that I liked the most, the one that looked most like a white paper. I'm just going to ask it to put this onto the canvas in HTML. Okay, let's see what it does there. And while it's doing that, I'm going to go back here. Okay, I like this. Of course, I should have. I should be able to write this myself. Of course, deeper history and diverse cultures. Yeah, much better. Where technology is understood more broadly to encompass societal structures and philosophical shifts. Yeah, it could have improved upon that, but yeah, it's okay. Oh, I love this already. Right, the Socratic suspicion of writing in ancient Greece. Failing to foresee fundamental changes and benefits. I'm not going to read that now. You can read it later. Oh, I love this. Yes, China's Ming Dynasty. The halting of the treasure fleets, early 15th century China. So they had a merchant fleet in the 15th century that was fantastically successful and projected soft power very effectively, trade and diplomacy, and the ships were just left to rot. That's fantastic. Quite interesting. Okay. Colonial imposition of systems in the global south. Okay, this is, okay, land tenure, imposition of cash crops. That is some good stuff there. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. So the last paragraph says, while the challenges posed by AI are significant and demand rigorous scrutiny and proactive governance, history encourages a balanced perspective. We must be wary of definitive pronouncements, whether utopian or dystopian. Instead, a posture of critical optimism, coupled with a commitment to adaptive learning, robust ethical frameworks, and agile risk mitigation will be essential. The future of AI is not predetermined. It will be shaped by the choices we make today, informed by often erroneous yet instructive predictions of the past. So yeah, I think this needs more work. I'm not sure that I would like more of these examples from the global south, and I'd like to sort through them to find ones that I find particularly resonate with me, and then integrate them into the document. And then let's just go back over to the version of the document that I liked. So yeah, I mean, this is a very first draft of this. This kind of like these issues with formatting. Ask the AI and just use simple language. So for example, I would say something like, where there is a heading, ensure enough white spaces above the heading to make the document clear and easy to read. See, that would then iterate through the entire document, and it would not only solve that problem, but it would solve this one here. I would ask it to ensure that indentation is sufficient to ensure readability, so this would punch out more and more and be easy to read. You know what? I would possibly ask it to change the body font to a serif font, because people generally find that easier to read. Yeah, okay, I've got links here in the description, and they are hyperlinks there. So it has done a reasonable job of this. I mean, I don't know if it can do this. I'm just asking. I've just said, can you add a save to PDF button at the bottom? Now, that's not actually the most useful thing to me, because, of course, what I'd want to do is pull this into a document, like a Word document or a Google Doc. That's all for now. We might have a look at this document later and see if we can tidy up the formatting or output it in a more useful format. Gemini, of course, is a Google product, and it links seamlessly into Google Docs. So it will quite often give you the option to output to a Google Doc, and I think that's what we need to look at next time. Okay, thanks for now.